Welcome back to my show. Today is February 2021. Donald Trump has just been acquitted from his second impeachment trial. Texas is having an awful winter storm, and New York City just reopened its indoor dining. It's also a brand new year. Happy New Year. It's the year of the ox. And what better way than to celebrate than to have this hardworking comedian? He is the co producer of Training Day, a live comedy show he puts on every Wednesday in Astoria Park. He's been killing it this whole pandemic, not literally, but figuratively. And he is a school teacher. Please help me welcome Jared. Jared, thank you so much for being here.
You can add the applause in there. Yeah.
It's one of those things. It's like, I know that this is a video format, but I can't help but to be like, come on, people, clap at home.
I was like, yeah, I thought somebody was there. I was about to, yeah. Good. Good to see you. How's your pandemic going? Good?
It's going okay. It changes from week to week, but how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm alive. I can't complain. All
Yeah,
is well. All is well in my end of the world.
that's good. So I was reading your bio, and I didn't know this, but where were you born?
I was born on this Air Force base called this White Man Air Force Base in Missouri, but I was raised in Tokyo and raised in the Netherlands most of my life, my
That
adolescence.
is crazy. I didn't know that. I thought you were from Florida.
I would move to Florida. Like my family is from Florida, North Carolina, so we're from, by the way, the South. So Florida, North Carolina, that's where we're from.
So can you share with me like what the difference is between growing up in the Netherlands and then living here in the States? Like what's a really sharp uh like difference?
I think the difference is, especially it was in during my adolescence slash early 12 to like 22. So Tokyo for maybe 4 years, in the Netherlands for the rest of the time. I think in the Netherlands everything's more, they're more accepting to different people.
Mm.
Because a lot of everything is legal there, drugs, anything you can think of. The drinking age is like 15 or 16, and for the first time you're introduced to people from just different type of cultures. Like we moved from North Carolina to Japan, so that was completely different from black, white, Mexican to Filipinos and meeting people from all different aspects of life. And I think the biggest thing was getting a world view of how America is viewed. So learning how to accept somebody like there was no homophobia when we were there because I had a lot of like gay friends when I was in high school that when I was in the South, everyone was kind of like in the closet. But when you got to Europe and you got to Tokyo, nobody really cared about what you did. It's just like,
Wow.
yeah, you're just people. So that's what I learned more. And this is like the early 2000s. So completely, the kids now probably grew up a whole lot way better than I did.
Right.
But inside that was like different classism. Everybody lived together, so you couldn't tell if somebody was super, super rich because you're on an Air Force base. But in the Netherlands, you could just tell how people viewed America because you're like literally out on the streets with all these Europeans. And this is when like George Bush was hated. So a lot of the times we couldn't like show our IDs. We had to have different type of ID cards and stuff like that because they're like beating up Americans and doing all that other stuff. So
Wow.
very unique life. I think that me growing living in the Netherlands, living in Tokyo made me understand people more,
Mhm.
understanding people that have either different mental health issues or people being alone. A lot of military kids are alone because their parents are gone for years and years. So it taught me that self of just how to make friends fast because I was moving around most of my life and like how to relate to people. Even though we're not from the same ethnicity, I can relate to someone wherever you're from.
That's beautiful. I love it. Have you had the opportunity to perform stand-up in the Netherlands or in Japan?
Yeah, I performed. I performed in Tokyo. I performed Germany. I performed in Israel. Yeah, but I think I performed in like 3 continents already.
That's amazing. So when I was looking up your bio, I didn't realize that you were from the Netherlands. I didn't realize that you opened up for so many great comedians like DC Benny and what's his name, Robert Kelly. How do you how do you stay so humble? Is that yeah.
They're just, for me, they're just people. They're people, and it really doesn't matter like what you do on the road, like when you're in New York City. Like coming from Florida, we're like a road state, so a lot of big comics come down to Florida every year because that's a part of their their circuit, right? So when you go down your circuit, Bobby Kelly would come every year, and you work your way up inside a different club, and I worked my way up to a feature act, and and especially in Florida, the club that I was from, Side Splitters, the comic gets to pick up the big comic from the airport. A lot of people don't want to do that, but me and my friends, we love doing that because that's when you can talk to somebody because you're in a car. They're going to say something. So I picked him up, and he was very friendly. Then I really liked cigars, so I gave him a cigar. He goes, "Hey, you want to come over here?" And he took me to the movie theaters, and then like he came back, and then he goes, "Hey, I'm doing this other club. Do you want to come with me?" And then I told him I was moving to New York, and he gave me some advice about New York. Outdated advice, very outdated. What he was saying, he's like, "Get to New York, get an apartment for $300 in Queens, and that's how you're gonna make it." I was like, "I don't know if you like that."
$300 with like 10 roommates.
Right. So they're like definitely stuff like that. But sometimes it doesn't matter, who you opened up for because when you get on that stage, they really don't care. Most of the people could care less about who DC Benny was if you're not in New York or if you're like deep in Texas or stuff like that. And I met DC when I was in Long Island. I was featuring for him at this governor's club, and then he goes, "Hey, I got some shows in the city. I would love for you to be a part of it." And me being from the South, I've heard comics say that before. Comics, when you get to New York, I'll do this, I'll do that.
Oh,
And he's
wow.
one of the ones that did it. He was the one that called me, and him and his wife invited me to the Hamptons, and we did some shows together. And like he always just emails me time to time, and we always just say hi and bye. That was like the one. Him and Nick Griffin, those are the guys who would like come in and check on me and write me and stuff like that.
Wow, you make it look so easy. You're just like, yeah, like what I'm hearing from you. Well, first of all, I know you a little bit and I like your vibe. You seem really real, really genuine. There doesn't seem to be a lot of like BS with you. So I can see where these people are like, come on, like let's hang out, like open for me, because your vibe is cool. But has it always been that way? Have you come across like egomaniacs, or not egomaniacs, because that's kind of dramatic, but like overinflated egos? And if you have, like, how do you manage that?
I mean, sometimes I guess when you're in Florida, and like you're in the South in general, most comics coming to the club are either going down their career or going up in their career, right? So if they're coming to this particular club that we're going, they're about to like either they're bubbling up or they're like established. So some of them they really don't have. It's really some of like the middle acts that they bring might have the the bravado or just like I'm his opener. I do this for them. I do this, and it's really you're dealing with the middle act instead, or sometimes you're doing like that. My thing is it's like kind of like a date that goes well. If the date goes bad, you're never gonna see them again. So you can only put up like you ever been on a bad date before where it's just like, oh man, when do I get out of here? It's like, all right, well I got 2 more hours left and then it's over.
Right. Yeah, I make the best of a bad date. Yeah. That's
There's
funny.
already food here. I might as well eat it. There's like, man, he already took me to, SeaWorld, so we might as well see these animals while we go, even though he's not a nice person or he's not someone I want to be with. I should enjoy these tickets that he bought. And you enjoy the show.
That makes sense. So you're basically enjoying the process, enjoying what is. Like you can't make it better, you can't make it worse. You just like, well, you can make it better. It's your attitude about it.
Well, I've learned as I get older, I learned that seeing comics now, if I was give my advice to myself younger, I was like a lot of comics are kind of thrown off with someone a younger comedian asking like 70 questions the whole time.
Hmm.
Because when the comments would come down, I would just ask them so many questions. What's it like being in New York? What's it like doing this? What's it like this? Some comments would get a thrill out of it because they're like, wow, I'm seeing comedy from his eyes and he's completely younger than me. Or it's just like, man, I gave this kid advice so many times. When is he going to get it? I can understand that frustration. Because now when comics come up to me, I was like, it's just simple. Just do this. And they're like, what are you? I was like, just do it. Just talk to somebody. So I get it. I get it. Because most of these comics, they're like in their 50s. And I'm like a young 25-year-old asking them who have you worked with this comic and everything else. I think the best one was Theo Vaughn. Before he blew up, he was like plateauing a little bit, and he came to Tampa, and he did his set. And me and my friends like, dude, you are so funny. Why are you not famous? Oh my God, what? And then he goes, you guys really like comedy, huh? And like, dude, we freaking love it. And he was like, a little jaded with the business. So he was he wasn't getting annoyed, but he was just like, okay, this is what I used to do. And
Mm.
now when you see him, he's like alive. So when I remember I bumped into him in New York, I said, "What's up, man?" You mean? He goes, "Hey, man, I'm surviving now, baby. Got my mojo back, man. You saw me when I was down and out." But like sometimes, like when you're there and the club isn't sold out, or because some people have door deals and stuff like that, you see people rise, you see people fall, you see everything else, and it's like a one night stand. After a one night stand, you're not supposed to keep calling or keep doing everything else. It's usually up to somebody else to give you the call. So like after I work with a stand up comedian, if they text me, I'm like, oh freaking cool, that's amazing.
He
So that's
liked
what happened
it.
with Bobby Kelly. We worked together, and one time he called me and goes, "Hey, how did your kindergarten play go?" I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, you said you did a kindergarten play. How'd it go? Send me the picture." Then I sent her the picture, and I was like, "Oh, wow." Right? But it's just like you got to think every comic comes down to every city and they meet the same exact people. So they're definitely not going to remember your name. They're definitely not going to remember, anything about you unless you stand out. And just like, oh,
Mm.
the freaking kindergarten teacher was talking to me about a play. We had a good time. So it's easy to walk up to a comic and they don't remember you at all. I've been plenty of comics I walk and say, "Hey, what's up? We met in Tampa." "Oh yeah, yeah, that's right." But they didn't. And most of the time I made this story up just to say like, "Oh, one time I think Tony Woods, I said, "Yeah, we met in Tampa." He goes, "When in Tampa? When's the last time I've been to Tampa?" I was like, "Oh, freak." I was like, I said, my guy, I think you got him no. Oh yeah, Suge. Yeah, you were Suge. I was like, "Yeah, I was with Suge." He goes, "All right, cool, cool, cool." Well, sometimes comics do remember.
Yeah, there goes my comment about you not being BS.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
just like I think sometimes if you want to talk to a comedian, the sometimes having a mutual understanding or a mutual common denominator helps the conversation go further instead of being a fan. Because if you walk up to someone as a fan, they get fans all the time. They don't want to talk to fans because most fans are weird. But if you say, "Hey, we work together," it's like, "Oh yeah, well, where we work together?"
Oh
I,
yeah,
I broke
that
into the
makes
SNL
sense.
party. I was BSing the whole time. I was BSing. I was talking to all these people.
Yeah,
Me and Lizzo having a full conversation. She thought I was some producer in Houston. That's what I told her. And she just laughing. We had a whole conversation about Houston, Texas, and I was just making it up. I was like, yeah, why not?
right. You're having fun. OMG. How long have you been in New York City? How long have you been performing here?
4 years. I got here 2016. August 2016.
And what are like three things that you love about New York City?
I think the thing that I love about New York City is you get to prove yourself a lot, which can be annoying to some people who've done things and established yourself again. But you get a chance to see comedy from a different perspective. You literally get to see every level of comedy. You can see the highest of the highest, you can see the middle, you can see the low, and you can see the bottom of comedy. And you get to every day, you get to assess yourself.
Hmm.
And even the days where you think you're the king of the world, like Chris Rock can easily walk by and you can easily assess yourself and realize, like, oh, I'm not that yet.
Mm.
Or you can easily have like a good week of shows and you're like, oh, I got 15 shows, or I got 10, 20 shows, and you see someone with 40 shows. So it's easy to adjust yourself and realize like you can always work harder in that. That'll be step one. The other thing I learned about New York, about living in New York, is that I think for me it's like faith based for me. I have to tell myself all the time when things get rough. I was like, you live in New York. You have your own place. You don't have roommates. You can go to Costco's when you want to and get some giant strawberries. That's the thing. Understanding that everything is this life for me. Everything has already been written, right? And once you realize that, the stress you put on yourself, you ease off a little bit. Plenty of times I'm like, man, Eddie Murphy was 21 when he did this. Dave Chappelle was this, and when he did this, I was like, well, you're Jared Waters.
Right.
That's what you got to be. I used to have these dreams of like going on the road, a comic, then a comic takes me on the road, and I do this and do that until I realized, like, oh, wow, maybe God has made it so to the point where I don't want nobody else to help you, so when you do make it, you only thank me.
Mm.
No one can ever take success of what you've done. Literally, it's got to be me. Only thing you can say is like, oh, God did it. As nice as DC Benny was, I did a show at the Comedy Cellar, but after I did it, I sat at the table and I realized like, oh, I'm not even past here. So what does it matter? Yeah, it was a good aha moment where I'm like my first year in New York. I'm like, freak, I did it. And then I was like, after that, I was like, well, I'm back at this bar show. doing this bar show, and it's like the perspective. We're like, yeah, I could send different people to like influence your path, but at the same time, I was like, it's all like that's faith based for me. I think that's what New York City has taught me, how to really stand on your religious values and have faith, especially when things get extremely rough.
Yeah, New York is pretty rough, so that's funny that you rely on it, on your faith more heavily.
I think it's
Um,
rough on artists, you know? Like if you're an engineer, pretty sure your life is completely different in New York, or if you're a doctor, your life is completely different. But I think the artist is because it's constant competition or constant evaluation of yourself and of your art. You have to completely evolve at all times. So I know a
mhm,
lot of great comedians that live in Florida that live pretty good,
mhm,
you know? But at the same time, the greatest comedian in Florida, what he does for a living is he opens up for another big comedian when they come to Florida.
mhm.
So I was like, I don't want to wait to be that guy when I can just go to New York and just go to,
Become,
yeah,
yeah.
become who I need to be.
And what's your third? What's the third? I mean, that was a good one. Those two are amazing. What's the third thing you like about New York? Because New York is tough, so that's why. And I've had interviews with other people, and they've all shitted on New York, and I could never be like, no. I was just like, yeah, you're right. It's I couldn't really defend my city. Obviously, I love it here. I mean,
I
I
like the
have a
train.
love-hate relationship with New York right now.
You're from here, so I get that. I was like that when people tell me about the Netherlands or Florida or North Carolina. I was like, I love that place. I don't
Right.
live there, but I could find the love about it. I
Yeah.
like the trains. That's what I do. I like the train system.
It helps you get to and fro.
I mean, I could fall asleep up there, and I know I won't crash into anything. That might be something good. Because driving tired is worse than drinking and driving. If you're tired driving, you could doze off. So having like a transit system and meeting different people. Like
Yeah.
it reminds me like Tokyo was like New York's not a big city to me. Like it's a regular. I've been in way bigger cities, so it's not overwhelming. It's just
Mhm.
like, oh, I meet different. It's like me. It's like kind of like high school a little bit. Like I'm meeting people from all over the world and all everything else, and that's kind of how I grew up.
Yeah. New York is nice like that. Um, tell me about your self-care practice. So you've been grinding during this whole pandemic, and I have to say, like, you make sure to put on your mask, and I know you're doing the right things. So how have you been staying motivated? And then also, how have you been staying sane? You know,
I think the way to stay insane is
not insane, sane.
I think staying staying sane is like when you're. I think it's that. I think some native New Yorkers have, and this is not a shot at them. It's just they have that comfort of having family here, right?
Hmm.
When you have nobody here, like my lady's here, but when you have nobody here and you come up here, you realize like I'm here to establish myself as a stand-up comedian. So any days that I have home, that's days that I'm not doing what I'm supposed to come up here to do. Like my wrestling coach used to tell me, he goes, I remember I was a senior and there's like all these hot girls at this basketball game and I was like, all right, let's call off practice. And everybody's like, yep, Jared said let's call off practice. And then he calls me and he goes, we can call off practice because, yeah, I understand you're in high school. I understand this is fun. He said, or you can give me 20 minutes to make yourself better. So you can just abandon or give me 20 minutes to make yourself better. I was like, all right, I did. And by the end, we did like an hour. I didn't realize we lost track of time. So when I'm doing things, if it's like a Tuesday night and I realize I don't have no show, I was like, I'm going to go near a show so I can at least see that I'm a part of this scene. And then someone's going to drop out or someone's going to lose a spot. And when they do, I'm going to be right there to pick it up.
Right.
Because I remember the times when I first got here where I wasn't getting up a lot, where I was at an open mic and they would put my name at the 85th part of the list, and then you get up there and only two people are there. Like I remember those times, and I think the pandemic really made New York. It's for the first time in a long time that every comic became on an even playing field. For the first time in a long time that every comic just stopped. Everything ended at 10 o'clock. So you literally got to rest for the first time in 4 years. Like I was like when we were locked down, I was just sleeping, resting, doing things that I was like, all right. So I rested. So after I rested, I was like, all right, now I'm recharged to go. But at the same time, since there's not that many shows right now, maybe like 20 shows a week, everyone's looking at the people who are doing those shows. So
Hmm.
for the first time in a long time, you can work with whoever you wanted to work with because everything shut down. So you can literally be on a show with someone you looked up to and realize, you know what, I'm not too far behind.
Yeah.
You're not intimidated. You're not anything else. So I was like, every room that I walk in, I was like, I'm never intimidated because I belong in that room.
Yeah.
Even when I'm around like bigger name comics or anything else, I show the proper respect and like I listen to their stories. I'll never like roast them or anything else. But after I've established my respect for them, it's like I realized like, no, I belong here. So
Hmm.
during this pandemic, like you've been to those shows that like where there's like we went to that sea of where we're like on that dock or whatever, and all these comics, on TV and stuff like that, and it's like, oh, what's your name? It's like my name's Jared Waters. Like you gotta remember it. Hopefully you get to the point where you see it over and over and over again and you realize like, oh yeah, it took a pandemic to happen, but I'm happy it happened during this pandemic.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's been good to see you too because like when I follow you on Instagram. So when I see you post another flyer or I just see you on your show, I'm like, yeah, you're doing it for us, kind of. It's so for the comics that can't get out or whatever. It's like, yeah, like it's really inspiring to see.
It's for our class. We came up together. So like every comedian has a class of comics that they came up with. So sometimes I think in comedy we sometimes we get around comedians that are not a part of our class, which is not not excuse for anyone to be dismissive to you, but sometimes it's just like they just don't know you because they didn't come up with you, so they can't rely on this person to do a good set because they don't know they came up with these group of comedians. In our class are the people who literally have elevated during this pandemic because we know where all these shows are because not of us all of us do every single club. So it's just like when I get on, I tell all my comics like when I do a show, it's for all of my class. Because as soon as they ask me, I'm like, "Do you know this comic? Do you know this comic? Do you know this comic? Oh, you need female comedians? I can list off 48 of them. Here's a list that I've constructed." Oh
Wow.
yeah, I feel like that. When we win, we all win. There's enough food for everybody.
I think so. I believe in that. Um, so let's get into some fun stuff. I mean, this conversation is fun, but if you're sorry, little coffee break.
Blessed. Ooh, I like that cup.
Thank you. If you had to take an Uber pool with Cardi B or Nicki Minaj, who would you take that Uber with?
I think I would take it with Cardi B.
Why?
No, maybe I think I would. I think I would take it with Nicki Minaj because Nicki Minaj she's approaching 40, and she's a. I don't know who I would. I don't think I would be in there with none of them. But maybe Cardi B because I think Cardi B. I have a lot of jokes about Cardi B, so maybe Cardi B.
So that you can tell her your jokes?
Actually, I would talk to Nicki Minaj because I'm curious about what Lil Wayne was like when the Young Money thing started.
Okay.
I would talk to more Nicki Minaj about
Okay.
rap because she's more of a pure rapper. I
Okay.
love Cardi B. Cardi B reminds me of this artist named Gangsta Boo. She
Uh-huh.
was only one of the female artists inside 3 6 Mafia. I think Cardi B will be more entertaining and it'll be fun. But I mean, like, as a historian, I'd rather talk to Nicki Minaj in a car about, like, how she's, how does she see rap music and how it was when she came up? Because it's
Mhm.
completely different than different eras.
Are you a big Little Wayne fan?
Yeah, yeah, I'm from the Southern music, Outkast, Lil Wayne, all that
Okay.
other stuff.
Wow.
That's really me. UGK, straight Southern music.
Hmm. That's really dope. Okay, another question. If you and your wifey are having dinner and it could only be with dinner with Rihanna or dinner with Jay-Z, who would you have dinner with?
That's a hard one because I just had a dream about Rihanna.
Nice. Coming in with the synchronicity.
It would be Jay Z.
Oh, word? How come?
Teach you how to move with a room full of vultures. You know,
Okay.
Jay Z. If you think about him being not even a billionaire, him being a billionaire, and he influenced Rihanna. So I'd rather talk to the source.
To the
I
source.
know Rihanna's an amazing, beautiful woman, but sitting down with Jay Z, I think that'd be like a master class on life. I listen to his interviews and what he says, and sometimes he's just light years ahead of what he discussed. I was
Right.
with the Jigga Man.
Yeah. Okay, and then this last one is if you can go to a basketball game, who would be the two teams playing? And would you go with Kanye West or would you go with Drake?
A basketball game now, or just any basketball team?
Get a basketball game now.
I would go see the Lakers versus the Brooklyn Nets, and
Dope.
and I would sit with Kanye West,
Very cool. Who would you be rooting for?
the Lakers.
The Lakers? Yeah, okay. Which player are you a fan of?
I've been a fan of like Shaq and Kobe, but I would cheer for LeBron because he's the underdog in the situation.
Yes. Do you think the Lakers are gonna make it this year?
Well, AD is hurt. I think they're gonna make it to the championship. Yes, I think if I think LeBron might end his career with 7 rings, seven or he has four. Oh, that's a lot. I think he might end it with 6 rings. In the last season, he plays basketball with his son. His son's in the NBA, and they play on the same team because his son's like 16 now.
You've thought about this. Cool. That's a cool. I've never
That
even
ends
thought
his
about that.
career.
That's really cool.
But I
Okay,
would
and
say
then
with Kanye West, my favorite album, College Dropout, my dark twisted fantasy.
mhm.
Even though people make fun of Kanye West, I
He's a
think
genius. I make fun of him too, but he's like he doesn't give a he does he's a genius in that he's an artist and he embraces his talents and he like puts it out there whether or not you appreciate it or not, and he just believes in himself so much. He has so much faith in his work that yeah, we all follow line.
Eagle told me this story that he said that Kanye West was at this thing and he's giving like a visionary meeting, and he said that the people in the room couldn't understand because he was talking 10 years into the future, but all the scientists were like agreeing with him, and it was all these other people that were like out there agreeing with him. My favorite song is Last Call, where he talks for like 15 minutes about how he made it and how everyone doubted him and stuff like that.
Yeah. Do you
Well,
have
go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
No, do you have moments like that where you're telling a joke or you're telling a story and that you know it's good, you know it's there, but people are just not on board because they can't wrap their heads around the future or that vision that you just presented?
Or sometimes it's like if a show's way too long, if a show's way too long and you're getting up there and you want to tell a giant story for 5 minutes, but you know their attention span isn't that because they witnessed 2 hours of jokes. So you just have to like adjust. Or sometimes you tell a joke that goes over their head, and then when you have to like rewrite it, like, oh, let me dumb it down for them, you know? Like Jay Z, he said that. He said he had to write raps more to the people so people could understand.
Yeah, I struggle with that because I grew up in, I want to say the streets. Like I grew up in the streets per se. And like I know what's going on around me. Like I know what's up. But then when I started to go to college, I started to see society and people from a different level and everything made sense to me. And I just felt so much more peace. Like things weren't chaotic, like moms hitting their children because they want their children to behave. And it's like once you understand the psychology of how a kid is like raised, you understand that they need more patience. And so sometimes when I'm speaking to people, I'm speaking to them from an educated level, and they're just like, what are you talking about? And I forget that I have to adjust depending on my crowd. And I find that challenging because I don't want to be in that level. Like I want to be on a higher level because I feel like that level consumes you, like the anger, like the frustration, the negativity. Like I feel like that's all very attractive. And if I'm not careful, like I'll get stuck in that. So I always try to like, you know what I'm saying? Like I try to have intellectual or smart conversations, but sometimes people don't want to hear it. They're like, I want you to tell me something stupid. And I'm like, ah.
Yeah, I think that sometimes when your circle changes, eventually, like especially when you get out, you got those people that you can have those intellectual thoughts with, and sometimes you just got to be around friends who just dumb it down when you just want to take off your cool and they want to do the crazy stupid stuff. I have friends like that where I know I won't be talking to them about 5 years into the future or anything else. I know we're just gonna be talking about what happened 10 years ago, what we did in high school, because that's the highlight of their lives,
Yeah.
even though they are still good people. But I know eventually that our intellect level is completely different. You know, Chris Rock, he's super smart. You could tell he's like him and that, but the way he has to bring it down so people could literally understand politics, like, oh wow, it sounds a whole lot easier when he explains it.
Yeah, Dave Chappelle is amazing at that. I feel like I've had a lot of similar thoughts to Dave Chappelle, and I'm like, I've said that, but obviously no one's listening to me because I look the way I look, and also maybe I just didn't present it the way he did. But he's really good at that, like dumbing. But it doesn't sound like he's dumbing it down. It sounds like he's giving it to us on this silver platter.
what is it, analogies, right? That's what we had to take when we did the SAT. So sometimes it's like not even dumbing it down, just sometimes you have to make it for the common people to understand what you're going through.
Right.
And if you have a big platform, it's easier to for the people to be patient for you to finish your thoughts, you know? I feel like for us, since we're coming up and we're establishing ourselves, if you haven't established yourself to a large range of people, people aren't granted to listen to your personal opinion. I'm pretty sure several people have some great thoughts about society. But if you only have 5 people listening to you, like who really cares?
Yeah, that's a
You
good
know, what
point.
if, how many people just walked up to you trying to give you, you're just like, I'm just not in the mood right now. They
That would
probably
be
have some insightful stuff. You're just like, oh, look how this guy dresses. I don't want to listen to him.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. I try though. I try connecting with people all the time. I'm always like, all right, tell me, give me what you got. And then sometimes like halfway through, I'm like, oh, this person's bullshitting me. I get so mad.
I feel it too. I think I get BS. Sometimes I'll give somebody the benefit of the doubt, even if they're BSing me. I'll listen to their stories. I'll listen to it because I know it's BS, and I'll play right into it. Oh, really? That's what happened. All right, cool. And I'll just listen to the story, and because they really want to tell me the story, I was like, I know this is full of lies. You know, I teach kindergarten, so I know when somebody's lying. I know when parents are lying, and I'll just listen to their stories. Oh yeah. Oh, that's what happened. Oh wow. That's crazy. What?
So that was another question of mine for you. What made you decide to teach kindergarten and not like seventh grade or third grade? Why kindergarten?
Well, I've always wanted to be a stand-up comedian my whole life. Like since I was like 15 or 16, I would always write jokes and stuff like that. My father came home when I was 11 and bought these Red Fox DVDs, and we would watch them. And I told my mother when I was like, I graduated school early, so I told my mother my goal was like to go to New York and do like stand up and stuff like that. And she goes, you should just do teaching because you can teach anywhere you want. So if you become a teacher, you can always go to any place you want to. You always have something to have to support yourself. So I was like, all right, whatever. So I applied for all these scholarships in high school and got all these teaching scholarships. And I was like, well, I'm just going to do what I want to do. And they're like, no, you better take these teaching classes. That's what we paid you for. And I was like, okay. So I did that. And then as soon as I graduated, I went to Orlando, Florida, because that's where I met all these funny comedians. I was like, I guess all the comedy's in Orlando. So I need to go to Orlando. And I was doing my internship at Disney World. We're like writing different stuff. And this lady, like my internship was over, and this lady goes, you have a great resume. And she goes, I have a spot open at my school, but for kindergarten. And I was like, that's okay. I'm not going to do it. Bye. And she's like, what? She's like, what? Then she called me again. And she goes, I want you to be like a surrogate. And I was like, nah, I don't have any kids. Because I did one of my internships I did in kindergarten. It was just rough. The kids were running around, and I didn't know anything. And they like left me to dry and all these bad things. And I was like, I'll never teach kindergarten. And this lady goes, she goes, look, trust me. She goes, if you start on the beginning, I'll help you. And this lady convinced me. Her name was like Sylvia Khan, this is the principal. And she goes, just call me back. So I called her back, and she goes, just start out with kindergarten. And I realized it's a whole lot easier when you start from the beginning. Like when I did my internship, I was like in March, and these kids were already established. They're playing around, and anything that can go wrong in that school went wrong. Like everybody quit except me. Uh, Copiers didn't work, everything else, and I was literally had to figure everything out on my own. And I realized that it's easier to paint on a canvas that's blank than a canvas that already has paint on it. You know, a seventh grader has his experiences from school, whatever he likes. He already knows who he is anymore. You can influence, but it's really like I can't argue with a seventh grader about what's right or wrong if I know it's right. But a 5 year old, they literally don't know. I can't get upset with someone who doesn't know what's happening in life right now or doesn't understand anything. But if someone who's like 13 or 14 or anything else, if you do know right from wrong and you choose to do wrong, that's I'd rather deal with somebody who doesn't understand. I can really educate them and stuff like that. And it's pretty easy, you know? And they can't Google me. 5 year olds aren't looking for me on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or trying to find my jokes or my podcast or something like that. But it's been
Right.
like random seventh graders like, hey, I heard your podcast last night. I'm like, what? I don't even teach you. What's your name?
That's so cool. Yo, shout out to your mom for giving you such great advice. That's so solid.
Yeah, I think they knew like I was the one out of all my siblings. Most of them are pretty much, and like always, I've always been just writing jokes, everything else, and filming stuff. And that's what was my goal. Like I think I was trying to drop out of college after my freshman year, and she's like, "Nope, don't drop out." And then my friend took me to New York when I visited, and I met John Lasser. And this
Okay.
was a long time ago, where John Lasser just won something off NBC, and he was upset about something that happened, and he goes, "All right, kid, you can do 5 minutes." So I did 5 minutes, nervous as f. And then afterwards, he just said on stage, he goes, "You just got to keep going. Whatever you do when
Uh,
you go back to college, keep going, man. And if it doesn't work out, you can sell insurance."
I saw.
I told him that recently. He doesn't remember. He goes, "I don't freaking know."
Ah, that's too bad.
Well, this is a long time ago, though,
Yeah.
but I remember it was him. I remember it was him just because I remember his jokes when I got, oh, frick, that's the guy, John Lasser. He was like the
He
first time that was nice to me.
he leaves a lasting impression. I saw him perform at the New York Comedy Club, and he was just so like electric and magnetic. And like by the end of his set, I was rooting for him as a human. I was like, what just happened?
Yeah, he made me look like I realized how inexperienced I was. Like, it was like one of those moments where, I had to assess my comedy career, even though I wasn't like doing comedy, but I was doing comedy in college, but I was like really like emotional. Like, man, whatever I thought I was, I'm not. I'm a fraud. Like, how dare I even utter the word stand up comedian when I literally met real stand up comics? I met like, it's like these chicks were just killing. I forgot what everybody's from, like Comedy Central, and I was like the first one. So the whole night they were just boom, 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 boom. And it was to the point where they could tell I was new because, like, before I got to the punchline, they were getting to the punchline for me. So they're just like, oh, yep, yep, yep. And I do that too now when I see the young. I was like, oh, this is where the comic's gonna go. But I remember just sitting there like 19. I don't know how young I was, and like listening to them, and they're just like, look, man, you just gotta keep getting up. When's the next time you get up? How many shows you got in North Carolina? I was like, once every 2 months. That ain't enough. That ain't enough. You gotta keep going every night, every time. Find a
Practice,
music
practice,
every night.
practice.
Yeah, find this, find that. And I needed that to realize, like, okay, I saw the peak of it, and now I assess myself and realize, like, oh, I need to go back down. So the next time I come to New York, I'll be ready. So
Right.
when I went back down south, I developed like time, like 30 minutes, half hours. We developed the 45. So when I came back up, I was like ready.
Wow. All that. So this is, yeah, it's a good reminder that practice, practice, practice. You could only get stronger, better, funnier. Do you have, how do you stay organized? Because with all the shows that you do, like, are you keeping a calendar? Are you writing things in notebooks? Are you telling your lady to remind you? Like, how do you stay? Because when you're performing at your level, you need to be organized, right?
Yeah, I'll use my calendar invites. I'll stack it up like when people right since it's the pandemic, it's not that hard to track everything. So I'll track it up. There've been plenty of times I forgot about shows where someone just said it like in passing, and I was like, "Oh, where are you at?" I was like, "What, you booked me?" Yeah, we wrote about it. I was like, "Oh, all right."
Oh,
But
man.
the Google Calendar, that's what me and we usually do when we book comics. We use a Google Calendar, and most of all my jokes are all in notebooks. But now I'm like putting all my jokes inside like my notes and my iPhone. So
Mhm.
instead of like bringing the notebook around, because I had someone steal my notebook before, and so I put them all, I jot down all my ideas inside my phone, and I save it in like different categories, and then that's how I do it. Usually all phone based. And if
Mhm.
someone steals my phone, it's in the iCloud. I can get a new one.
Oh, that's smart.
God
When
willing,
you
nobody steals my phone though.
say what? I'm sorry, what was the last
God
part?
willing, nobody steals my phone. God willing.
Right, no, nobody's gonna steal your phone. When you kept your jokes in a notebook, do you toss out your notebook after a couple of years, or are those notebooks still hanging around your house?
No, I keep them. I keep them. I was
Keep
actually just
them?
talking to my friend Jonas about this. He's in LA, and I was telling him, I was like, he's telling like how comedy's like that. I was like, well, go back to old premises that you wrote and see if you can talk about it now. So
That's
a
cool.
lot of ideas that I had when I was younger, I didn't know how to come across and say it the way I wanted to say, or have like a way to connect. So now I'll just go back and I'll look at stuff like, oh, I forgot about that joke. Maybe I should use this one. Oh, freak, this is a good joke. Why did I stop doing it? And just go back and revisit different things.
Mm. So we're about to close up here. Can you tell me when the states open back up, like where's a city or country that you want to perform in, like that you're thirsting to go?
Uh, Usually when we travel and do vacations, we try to pick a place where there's not stand up comedy, so we can actually like relax and not do that. When I was in London last time, It was really good. But honestly, I enjoy performing in parks. I really enjoy being outside. I
Nature.
really think that I think it's another element of comedy that we kind of lost about. Like what I thought I was before the pandemic, I'm completely different because now I realize, man, I could have hit faster, completely harder. Because when you're outside in a park, you need to engage faster with the crowd because there's so many distractions. There's so many like dog.
Oh, I lost you. Where'd you go? We're just getting to the, well, this whole thing has been good. Hold on one second.